So in this video, I'm going to explain why people suck and why sometimes you might have a good rule system and you might have a good heart, but might not be able to choose the road you want. I used to be a people person. Really. In the programs, in the orphanages, even as my mother was beating me, even as I took all this and I'm sitting with my mother as my father's going out to eat. All these different situations, I'm definitely a people person. People get violent, hurt me, and then I talk to them about it and get them over whatever the hell made them do that. A lot of times it has nothing to do with me. I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. I see this happening to other people. Like, for instance, there was two people about the fist fight over a guy named Robert having his meds stolen. There was Kenny and this other skinhead guy. But nobody was a victim. Apparently, one guy's girlfriend stole Robert's meds. But then you got Kenny and Joey out there about the fist fight. But it's your girlfriend and your friend. This has nothing to do with you. So I ended up mediating it by bringing Kenny and Joey over to Robert, and we had a conversation, and it ended up falling upon the girlfriend, who admitted eventually that she swiped the meds. It was the girlfriend the whole time. Well, these two people were about to fist fight and hurt each other over nothing. Over nothing. So people just suck. They love trying to act better than somebody else. That is the thing. When my father wants to act righteous, he'll call me a shithead, a liar, a thief, and then run off into the sunset. That's his plan because it makes him feel good. While he sits on the beach, or while he's out to eat with a martini, in his head, I'm a shithead shooting up in the back alley, and he's the good father who gave me everything. That's his fantasy. That's his fucked up dream. That's why he's going to go and continue with this bullshit, because it makes him feel blameless. Meanwhile, the real world is that our son has been hurting for 25 years, falling down and receiving injuries from some type of epileptic disorder similar to epilepsy. It causes seizures, falls. Even at the age of 7, teachers were realizing this and trying to call home to get me help. At the age of 8, teachers were trying to get me help. At the age of 7, doctors wanted to help me, but my mother used fucked up rhetoric and said it wasn't important. My mother said it's all some allergy attack to the medication I gave him. It's over with. We don't need to discuss it. Every single time anybody got close to helping me, we moved to another state and cut them off. That has nothing to do with me. But now we're going to talk about some of the fucked up rhetoric slash people person slash why people suck, but not anything to do with my family. This has nothing to do with my family whatsoever. So, there's been 2 times where I've had long hair in my life. But I don't like long hair. I do not. But I have a rule. I have a religious rule not to spend money on sinful behavior. So spending money on a haircut and makeup would not be okay when you can cut your own hair. And I can cut my own hair with a pair of clippers. I can cut my own hair with a pair of clippers, and it will look just fine. It's just a buzz cut, just a down to a 2, kind of a skinhead look, kind of a buzz cut. And that was fine for me from age 5 on. During childhood, it was always a bowl cut or a buzz cut. Either a bowl went on my head or we went out to super cuts or whatever. But as I grew 18 years old, I had to make a decision. Do I want to spend money on a sinful behavior like envy of myself? Or do I want to cut my own hair and spend that money helping other people? So every time I need a haircut, I take that money and I either better myself so I can help others, or I better others so they can help themselves. Teach a man how to fish, in other words. I can teach other men how to fish by learning how to fish myself. I better myself, I can better other people, or I use that money to better other people by teaching them things by leading as an example. There's a million different. I don't hand out money though. Fuck that. People will just spend the money and come back tomorrow asking for more money when they're on drugs. That's not me for sure. Oh my God. Even while I was on drugs, I was an outcast in the drug area. I did small little test shots for pain and then try to find work or get more money. I also never stole, no matter how sick I got. I had a rule system. I will never get sick enough to steal, no matter how much dope I do. That will never be a thing for me. So I just had a big, good rule system that no other addicts live by. And that's because of my religious beliefs. Like here, I'm not allowed to spend $20+ on a haircut. Now I can find a friend and have him cut my hair, but see, once again, people suck. So the ways that this moves forward, I want a haircut, I want a buzz cut. I either can cut it myself, but because I can't see the back of my head, it has to be a buzz cut on it too. Now the problem with that is people suck. I've had people judge me for being a gangbanger just for having a haircut like a buzz cut on a two and tattoos of Christianity on my arm. So because I'm Christian and I believe in Christian type of beliefs, and I have a very important prayer, Peter 1, chapter 5, 7 through 10, because I have that, and I have a buzz cut, people think I'm just like one of these white punks who like gang, because that's how they look. They have blonde hair, no glasses, tattoos. They walk all hippie hoppy, and I have a funny walk because of my neurological disorder. But as soon as they spend a week with me, they understand that. But from first impressions are important, and if I have a buzz cut, then my first impressions are going to be this kid has a buzz cut, just like the rest of the white wannabe bloods with buzz cuts. I've seen it all over the place. The buzz cut white kids wearing red, those type of kids. We don't want that first impression. Once when they speak with me and get to know me, I'm instantly not that. I'm instantly not no gangbanger. Instantly you realize that after speaking with me, my voice, the way I dress, everything will eventually add up to, oh, this is a disabled kid that loves and cares and is a hippie. He has 1,000,001 love speeches. He helps out others for free. He cares for children and disabled people. He even gives his time to the leopards of today, I call them. That's sex offenders, people in wheelchairs, people that have no money, people who lost their children. These are some of the or people that aren't good, need help learning how to be a good parent. These are some of the people that I've been able to help, as well as hookers and prostitutes. Like there was one in Lynn that was a hooker prostitute with her boyfriend that put her out on the street to hook. She got in an argument and decided to stay across the hall, or sorry, not across the hall, across to the other building, across from the walkway. And what did I do when she asked to stay with me? I said, sure, but you got to stay on the couch. I don't want to have sex. We're not going to date. No sex allowed. She didn't understand this rule. She said, no sex allowed? I said, no sex allowed. She goes, it's always the opposite. Men are always asking me to have sex with them, to stay with them. I said, yeah, it's the opposite here. No sex allowed. If you have sex with anybody, or if you try to have sex with me, you can't stay here no more. She understood this. Then I asked her if I could call her family. She said, no, I don't talk to them. Eventually, I got permission for her to kind of talk to her sister. And eventually, her sister informed me that there's a warrant and she's looking at a couple months in prison, but they can get her put into a rehab facility to do her time, and then she can move right back home with them. So eventually I worked this out, and she went into the police car picked this girl up. She went into prison for a week. Then she went into a rehab facility. Then she went back home with her family. She got all good for months with her family, a couple months. And then her sister drove her to my house to hug me and say thank you. No other man was like you. I've never met a man like you in my life. So apparently I'm unlike any other man of my age. Apparently other men don't have a rule in their apartment. No sex allowed with the hookers. That's just my rule. If a hooker's going to stay on my couch, no sex. That's your profession. I don't want any sex in my house. No, no, no. If you're staying with me, you're getting out of that shit. You're getting out of it. But that's how I make my money. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to know about it. And I want you to stop. Now, I'm not going to force you to stop. You're not thrown out if I find out you hooked outside someplace else. But it's not to happen in my apartment. And if they do break the rules, then you're going to have to leave. That doesn't mean you can't come back a week later or something like that, depending on what you did. I always have a forgiving heart to people who want to do better. But those are the type of good deeds I did. I got to see the good results. There was also a pregnant 18-year-old who I knew since they were 16 because of Gobby, who was an 18-year-old I knew in Lawrence, and he died at the age of like 19, 20. Really sad story there. I should have spent more time with him that last year. I was trying to get my own life back together, and he ended up dying in a hallway doing his own thing. When he was with me, he did really well, but when he was on his own, that kid fell apart. Another mother who doesn't give a fuck about her son, using her son for benefits and to try to get Social Security, and the son had no idea what the hell was going on with him, with all the pills, medication, all of it. Anyways, so Gobby passed away, but his girlfriend got pregnant from a different guy, from a friend of the family from oh, it was someplace that my aunt used to live. It's Pennsylvania. So he used to live there, and he had her visit a year prior or 6 months prior and knocked her up. And now she's wandering the streets. Winter's about to be here. It's Halloween time, and she's pregnant with nowhere to go. So I helped her get her vitamins, food, things like that. I don't think she spent the money like she was supposed to at times. But yeah, she followed me around to get shelter, things like that. We kind of worked as a team, but really it was more like a puppy dog and me. But yeah, so now her story is that she got back with the family. Now originally she was going to lose the child and be homeless because her father wasn't going to do anything for her. His mother didn't do anything for her. Her mother, I mean. And the grandmother was really upset about the whole situation. That's who I talked to. So that side of the family still to this day hasn't done anything really for the situation as far as I know, even though maybe they eventually jumped in 3 years later. So it was the baby daddy side, but he's afraid because he's in his 30s and this girl was under 18 when she got knocked up. But anyways, I end up stepping in. I work this out. I end up pushing them together, kind of, and I spend month after month trying to make sure that I push this girl towards the family, not towards me. You know, I keep on trying to be like, no, 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 you can't follow me. You need to go to find the baby daddy. And I even talked to the baby daddy because the baby daddy would come to Lowell to get drugs or whatever, and I would see him and then track his ass down to have a conversation with him. And then I also walked her to the sister at the train station. The sister called me, and we were able to get the pregnant, at this time, humongous. She was at least 5, 6 months pregnant by this time. And I was able to walk her, and this was a like 5 month thing. This girl followed me around for more than 5 months. During pretty much her whole pregnancy, she was just homeless and she didn't eat well. She didn't take her vitamins like she was supposed to. She was smoking K2 drugs, and I was telling her not to. I was not her supplier. Absolutely not. She was doing it beforehand, and I am one of the people who could cut off her K2, which she got mad to me about, because I knew all the K2 dealers and I cut her off in the town. And she did not like this. She did not like that I had her cut off in the whole town of Lowell and Lawrence. Yes, nobody was allowed to sell to this girl. She would come up to people and they would say, sorry, we can't sell to you. Zach said no. Zach said no. Zach said we can't sell to you. But she still got K2. She would pick it off the ground. She would find people to sell it. She would steal mine that I was supposed to be selling to get us a bite to eat or something like that. It was just a whole mess. And then eventually she was picking off the ground with me, what was even gross. So there was a bunch of issues like that. I was no better when I was homeless. I used to pick up off the weed off the ground and roll it into another joint all the time. I would pick weed off the ground and roll it into a joint. K2, I think I did that at times too. So I'm no better. But this girl is pregnant. I'm screaming at her, how about your baby? How about your baby? Stop smoking. I'll stop smoking if you stop smoking. And then she goes, no, no, no. So, but I was able to get her off the K2, back with the family, and she was able to keep her kid with her actual baby daddy. So the baby daddy, the kid, and the mother all got back together. They all got to stay, and that wouldn't have happened without me. Now, I'm not trying to give myself credit because all these years I've kept silent. I just did it, and I never told anybody about it. Only in this diary, in these videos, will you hear about this. If I have never once spoken to anybody about, oh, oh my God, how can I not remember her name? It's Michelle, not, yeah, it's Michelle. I think I called her something else in the last video, but it's definitely Michelle. It gets blocked. I keep on getting M. The letter M, I think it's Michelle. I'm pretty sure that that's better than the last name. Yeah, it's Michelle. Anyways, she was very bubbly, and people used to call her Bubbles sometimes, but that gets confusing because there's a Samantha who's also called Bubbles. So there's Michelle Bubbles, and then there's Samantha Bubbles. And they both were pregnant about only 9 months apart, so it gets even more confusing. Samantha Bubbles got pregnant 9 months after Michelle left. So I helped out, my list must be at least 20 successes and 100 tries. And I have at least 20,000 small successes, like small good deeds that nobody else would do, like giving up your seat in the bus. The bus is completely packed. There's nowhere else to sit. And you're about to take it, and the person in back of you says they have a doctor's appointment, and you're just going to work. But your boss might fire you, but you don't know. But this person might actually die if he doesn't go. So you step back and you say, okay, you can take the last step on the bus. And then the bus driver goes away and you take the next one. Stuff like that. During COVID, there was only 12 people allowed on the bus at a time. So if it was already full, you had to wait for the next one. That's the type of situation I'm talking about. I did that all the time during COVID. If the bus was full and they said they only could take one person and the next person would have to wait and I'm the first person in line, but the next person in back of me has a doctor's appointment and I just have to go to work, or if I have a doctor's appointment and they have a doctor's appointment, but I'm 2 hours early and she is 5 minutes late, maybe I do that good deed to save a life. All these things add up in the long run. That's the problem. You do a nice deed, or you keep a positive attitude, and then the next person does a good deed, keeps a positive attitude. It's contagious. And if you're an asshole who's just being judgmental, and you're always like, it's his own fault. Oh, it's that person's fault. But you're blameless, right? You do everything perfect, and everything is just handed to you. Oh, yeah, you were born in the right age. You got the right job. You dodged your military service. You never had to do anything really hard in your life. You never had to fall out of a tree with people shooting at you. You never had 5 people ready to stab you. You've never had a medical condition where you have head injuries or seizures on a regular basis. You've never had a life-threatening disease and not get medical care. You've never had a challenge where you've had to live on $0 for a year. These are the type of problems that some people face that have nothing to do with their own choices. Sometimes people are just born to poverty. That's it. That 7-year-old who's not getting fed for 3 days, maybe he was just born to poverty and his father's working 60 to 80 hours and the mother's dead. Who knows what the situation is? But that is not the child's fault that he was born to poverty. Just like it's not my fault that my mother decided to give me an overdose at age 7 and destroy my nervous system. If I'm walking down the street and my legs stop working and I fall and face plant on my head and I get knocked out and then I wake up in the hospital, it's not my fault that I'm disabled. Absolutely not. And the fact that I didn't have this at age 5, that when I was born, I was just hyperactive, had attention problems, so that's ADHD, and I needed glasses. That's all I was born with. But by the time I was age 7, 8 years old, I was talking to the doctors in the doctor's offices about a medication handful that was given to me, and then I lost my vision completely, lost the ability to speak, screamed for help, couldn't stand up. My total nervous system was fried. I couldn't see at all out of my eyeballs, and I passed out on a pile of newspapers. I could hear the crinkling, and I knew they were there when I woke up and before. So I didn't see the newspapers, but I knew they were newspapers. And I'm trying to scream for help. My mother is on the phone with emergency contact, so you would think I would get an ambulance or they would be told to bring me to the emergency room, right? Well, they did. They told my mother to bring me to the emergency room. And then my mother said, they don't know what they're talking about, and hung up on the people. And then left me there to sleep off and overdose. And then, when I was talking about this at the doctor's, again, my mother makes up the story about it being an allergy attack. So the people on the phone don't know what they're talking about. My mother somehow knows everything and knows this has to be some allergy attack. But how does my mother know this? Did she bring me to the doctor's that day? No. Did she bring me to the emergency room that day? No. Did she talk to her son about the symptoms? No. Did she look at a list of side effects and match them based upon the symptoms she's witnessing? No. My mother just pulled this out of her ass as an excuse so nobody would look any further into this illness. And now I have to suffer at the age of 31, falling down and hurting and having trouble at work because my mother and father wanted to hide a disability because my mother was responsible. Now, my father might not have fully known what was going on, but my father knew that I was being over-medicated. He knew that his wife was going wild and nuts. He knew that the whole family was coming to him saying, handle your wife. And at all times, his wife just had excuse after excuse after excuse. As teachers and doctors and family members and sons and daughters come up to my father and say, handle your wife, handle your wife, handle your wife, handle your wife. She's acting weird. She's acting unstable. Your son's acting unstable. Your wife's acting unstable. Your son's acting unstable. As people say this, what does my father do? He believes the bullshit. My mother goes, oh, it's all their fault. Yeah, they're just out to get me. They're out to get me. Yeah, they're out to get me. Oh, yeah, they're out to get me. He's out to get me. She's out to get me. They're all just out to get me because he has attachment disorder. And he never liked me to begin with. And she just wants my money. And she just wants this. And my father goes, oh, okay. And then I'm left to suffer some more. And I'm left to have my body poisoned some more. My mother goes in her medicine cabinet and switches over some more pills that I'm not prescribed. She goes and gets a bottle of Epicac and decides I should be punished with a full bottle of Epicac, all because I repeated something that another adult said, and I ate a wild mushroom. So I decide, my mother decides, I should give a full bottle of Epicac to my child. I shouldn't read the bottle. I shouldn't give a recommended dose. I shouldn't use a spoon. No, I should get a Dixie cup and fill the goddamn shit. And she made it a point to show me that this was an empty cup that is getting filled with pure Epicac out of the bottle. She made it a point to show this to me and then brag about it for years on end. How she gave me extra medication as a punishment. This isn't me just saying, I think that I was given extra medication. I was told and shown that I was given extra medication. My mother admitted to these things in front of my sister and my brother and me. This is not something some of this I had to put together. But a lot of it I just saw in front of me and didn't know what to call it. What do you call it when a mother gives you medication in your hand? That's all I knew, is that some of the medications in my hand were changing colors and I was getting sick. Well, I told the doctor that. I told the doctor I was getting sick, and the doctor knew my mother was giving me pills. Everybody knew my mother was giving me pills. And whenever anybody asked my mother what those pills were, my mother would say, I forget, I don't remember, I don't have the list, I don't know. And if anybody asked my mother and father, what are the side effects of those pills? My mother would say, I don't know, I don't have the list, I've never read it. If we read the list, we'll believe that we have all of them. Well, she was preparing ahead of time. That's why my mother would go around saying that. My mother used to go to my father and prepare him for brainwashing. And she used to do this to me too. She used to try to do this with bipolar, schizophrenia. Some of them the doctors wouldn't give her. Like the schizophrenia, she tried to lie and lie and lie, and no matter how much she lied, the doctors wouldn't buy it. But as far as my father, she prepared to brainwash him with side effects too. When the side effect list used to be sent back home and my father or somebody would ask about the side effects and how it looks like I'm having a lot of these side effects, my mother would go up to my father and say, if we read this side effect list, you'll think that your son has these. Because I am. I'm shaking. I'm puking. I'm passing out. I'm drowsy. I'm having horrible, horrible side effects. And if my father does read the list, he will realize that they match completely. But my mother says instead that it's a delusion, it's a fantasy, that if my father ever reads the list of side effects, then he will be convinced instantly that I have all of them. So he is not to read any of the side effect list. And then she comes over to me and tells me the same thing. Zach, if you read this side effect list, what you're not supposed to read, then you'll automatically think you have all of them. But she's saying this over and over, brainwashing it into us. That way, if I do get the side effect list and I realize, oh, so that's why, oh, so that's why, oh, so that's why after I take my night medicine, I feel this sinking fear feeling. That's called depression. And that's why I have suicidal thoughts right after my night meds. I'm taking 5 depressants / antipsychotics that I don't need. Of course I'm going to have side effects. Well, here's my side. This is what I'm feeling right here. It's right in clear print. No wonder why I felt so terrible at nighttime all those nights. But instead, my mother told me not to read the side effect list and told me that if I read it, then I'll instantly be convinced I have all of them, and then I'm supposed to do nothing. It's a disease. I'm going to think I have all of them. When really, I've never read the side effect list until I turned 24. Yes, my mother brainwashed me and my father good. My mother convinced me and my father that we should never ever read the side effect list, and that if we had side effects that were bothering us that matched the list, then that's all some delusion. Meanwhile, it's very clear if you're puking in a fucking toilet for 3 months after taking a pill, and then you read the list and it says nausea and vomiting, that's important to tell your doctor about. If you're having heart palpitations after taking pills at bedtime, and then you read on the paperwork it says possible heart palpitations and heart attack, you might want to bring that up to your doctor. But instead, my mother said, ignore all the paperwork, do not read any of the side effects, and if I do read the side effects, and I do think I have one of those side effects, it's all just made up. And she told the same thing to my father, that if he reads the side effect list, he'll automatically be convinced that I have all those side effects. And it's just in his head. It's nothing to pay attention to. Well, let's say I am having horrible side effects. What's the normal process to get me help? If I'm a 10-year-old child suffering greatly during the day from horrible pharmaceutical side effects, what needs to be done to establish that? The mother and father have to check for these side effects. So first you have to know what the side effects are, and then you got to look for them in your son. But the mother's already made sure that nobody will ever do anything, no matter how many side effects I ever get. That's terrible. My mother is evil. Still to this day at age 31, I suffer greatly because of my mother's choices. And still to this day, my father wakes up out of his bed every morning deciding to keep all this a secret and deciding that it's better to have a son out there suffering in the woods than have the truth about his second wife be out in the open. Every day he wakes up and makes that decision.